What's good, everyone? This is Dev the Coolest.
And this is JB.
And welcome to Hashtag Slick Talk. Hey, it with a hashtag. Welcome back, y'all, to another episode, another virtual social distancing episode.
Episode.
Yes, I'm excited for this one. This has been a long time coming for sure.
I'm
excited to have this conversation and just educate people and inform people and get people out of a bit of their ignorance. Some people out of their ignorance. So
and breaking down stigmas and everything like that. So without further ado. What is it? Further ado? Okay. Further ado. We would like to welcome Neverending Nina to the show.
Hey everybody.
Hey.
Yes.
Thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to come and fellowship.
Absolutely. Welcome. We're blessed to have you here. Skin looks beat. It looks like quarantine is treating you good. Yeah.
You gotta get that light right, and you gotta give a little bronze tease.
Yeah, come on, bronze tease. I love it. So would you like to just introduce or tell the listeners something about or things about yourself and where you're from, what you do, and
Okay. Well, number one, I'm Neverending Nina. My journey never ends, so that's where that comes from. I'm originally from Port Arthur, Texas, by way of New Orleans, Louisiana. Now residing in Los Angeles, California. I'm a singer, songwriter, entertainer, vocalist, entrepreneur. I'm a Jill of all things. So mostly into the space of creative and creativity, and I use that as an outlet to express whatever I want to express. So that could be in any form, in any range. So I'm mostly a creative. I don't just tag myself a singer and songwriter, but that's where I know that's my lead off into other spaces come from. So yes, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, and I personally have heard you sing, and child, listen, this woman right here, it's definitely, I love like your tone and texture of your tone and texture of your voice. I remember when you put up, you did the Brandy challenge, sitting up in my room?
Yeah, sitting up in my room challenge. I'm a Brandy disciple now.
Yes. And listen, you blew that out the water. We posted you on our page, on our Instagram page, and that got so many likes and comments and views and all that. It blew up.
When you obedient, because I was like I said before, I'm a Brandy Stan star. Like out of a lot of individuals that have influenced me, she by far is up there with the influence. And so anytime I'm able to particularly show up because of who I represent and how I view music and how I know my journey and my story, I want to make sure that I'm in the room. But I also want to make sure that when I show up, I can show out. And so that's the thing that I always want to make sure, especially when it's presented in a space that represents her. Yeah. And so I just let it go, and everybody, I've gotten great responses still to this day about just showing up.
I want to, before we move on, I do want to ask you a question, because there's been a lot of conversation circling, there's been a lot of versus battles going on Instagram lately. Erykah Badu and Jill Scott was the last one. How do you feel about it? Huh?
Which was phenomenal.
Yes, everything. I was in this living room with my
crying, tears, laughing, everything.
So how would you feel about a Monica versus Brandy?
I mean, I'm okay with it, because as you can see with the trajectory of the verses, that all our icons are getting more spins on their music. Mm-hmm. People are becoming more familiar with who they are. they're getting a resurgence. And see, that's the thing for me as a music head, that particularly in our Black community, I don't know what that is, but it's like when you look at rock, which is still ours, but when you look at rock and roll, we have those Rolling Stones and everybody else past their 40s and 50s, still every year going out on sold out tours. Yeah. But for some particular reason, with us, after a certain age, oh, no more, we don't see you, bye. And it's like, I think that part needs to change. And I think this is one of the catalysts that let the community see that it's so much more after a certain age, and we don't just want to pigeonhole. So to that, I'm down for that. If it's in a space of celebration like Erica and Jill did, then by all means, yes. Because we already know it's a little history behind that.
Exactly.
So we don't want, particularly in this time, I don't want to see that. Like,
I agree.
If it's for celebration, then by all means, yes. Mm-hmm. Because Monica got bangers and Brandy got bangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I think Brandy would personally like slay the hell out of that, but it will be a great celebration of the two artists.
Okay, so but why would you say she would slay?
Brandy, personally, because I just appreciate Brandy's like music way more than Monica, like as especially since I've been growing up and having a fond appreciation for music in general. When I go back and listen to Brandy's catalog of music, I'm like, I really didn't appreciate this music when it was coming out. Like, I literally go back nowadays to listen to Brandy more than I listened to her back in the day. So, and I love Monica to death, but I just feel like Brandy has a lot of more versatility with her music catalog. And then I just obviously love her voice. And it'll be a good celebration. I'm not counting Monica out, but it'll be a good celebration. Yeah.
I can see that.
I'm hoping for it. I'm praying and hoping for it
as well. So we do want it to, go into the conversation and, start the topic of one of the reasons why we had you on the show. And first, I do want to ask you, how would you like to be? I know we already been kind of like, talking to you and mentioning you and calling you by woman, but you do, what were your pronouns? Like, what would you like to be called?
Oh, with anything, and that's it. I see where you're leading to this. So anytime, so for those who don't know, I represent the trans community. And so I always lead with, when someone doesn't know, you ask them their names, or like you did, ask, what are your pronouns? And some people in the beginning used to have like hesitation, but it's like, no, we could ask that. Like, what are your pronouns? So my pronouns, of course, it's she, hers, but before any of that, my name is Nina, or Neverending Nina. Yeah. So for the most part, you can refer to me as that. Okay. Or, hey, boo, all the things that are in a respectable space. I think we tend to, my teachable moments are like making sure that the humanness is still in existence with someone of the trans experience, and not, you can be on eggshells, but at the same time, it's still a safe space to, because I know the intent. So that's the thing that we sometimes would turn people away from possibly open themselves up to understand the trans, somebody in the transit community, is that they don't want to get wrong. And it's like, well, if you haven't ever experienced that, then most likely you're going to get it right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually, and I'm going to let Dev jump in, but I actually appreciate you saying that, because I've had past even growing up in the gay community, and I don't think a lot of people understand that even being a part of the gay community, even being in this community, I don't have all the answers to what goes on in different intersectionalities of this community. So it's like, I'm going to get it right well. So I definitely appreciate you.
Right. You know what you know. And it's like, there's nothing you can do except be who you are, and then have an open mind and an open heart to understanding something that you might not know, but your intent is to learn and grow. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And be respectful.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's my main thing. As long as you're respectful.
Listen.
Mama, I know when somebody's charging me.
Right.
Okay. Listen, period. What about you, Jeff? How do you feel about what you said?
Check in with that intention. You know what I mean? Yeah. So at what point did you come to terms with accepting that what you were assigned at birth is not who you are? Was there a moment, or did you know from jump?
So this is the other precursor to this conversation, is that my experience is my experience, and I do speak for myself as being an example of the trans community, but it's not a overall umbrella or everyone has the same experience. Just like Black people, we are all not a monolith. There's so many different avenues and spaces. So what I am sharing is my experience in part due to my trans experience and my existence. We say trans experience, but it's really it's no experience, it's just my existence.
Yeah.
But that's just the terms that we come with in these days. But for me, I think thankfully I was just always in touch with who I am. At that time when I was young, I didn't have definition, but I knew that I wasn't my brother, clearly. I knew that, of course, I was similar to my sister, but I still knew I was still different in some type of way. And so for me, once again, in my own experience, my aesthetic gave me precursors to what my experience was gonna be. Because I would always take examples of looking at my brother and looking at my sister. I'm the baby of the family. So I would look at my brother and I would look at my sister and I'd be like, well, how they gonna call me this? But I'm over here, right? Because this looks better. You know, I'm like, so it was just always this gauge of analyzation of my existence and my space and my community and my family and examples that have been presented to me. And I'm like, well, this feel more normal than that. So to pinpoint it was something that was always there, but thankfully over time, particularly maybe middle school, was when I actually started getting into the ebb and flow of it. But it really hit me probably, I would say, my senior year in high school leading into college. That really let me, I was fine with people saying I was androgynous because clearly I know that's what I was presenting all the time. Like I couldn't hide from that. My physical appearance let people know, like, wait a minute, y'all calling her what? No, no, ma'am. That's a woman. Like, what are you talking about? It was like, I would sit there in amazement, hoping that the people that was my guardians would say anything different, but they wouldn't say nothing at all, which leads me to believe like, that let me know like, it's for me to get into my own understanding of it. And I'm thankful for that because now nobody could ever take that away from me.
Yes.
And that's the key thing is like when and y'all could attest to that, being in the space of being Black, being in the space of coming from a certain privilege or not, you have to condition yourself to a certain space. And then when you finally say, I got something on my own that's mine, that I know who I am, I might not know definition, but I know who I am. That's a different type of thing. And so like, I'm glad that my higher power gave me that when I was young, to where anybody could come against me and I'm for sure know who I am, regardless of what they might say.
Wait, so have you, it sounds like you pretty like sharp. Like since I first met you in LA out and about, like I've always gotten this presence of like, she knows who she is and you walk with the air of like confidence. And have you always had that growing up?
I think for my experience, because of course I'm an entertainer, of course I'm an artist, of course I'm a creative. So I literally, I was telling my friend the other day, like I've literally been in a boot camp training all my life. Like my imagination was my safe space. So I would look at the videos of Brandy, the videos of Prince, the videos of Michael, the pretty in my room. It was for some reason in my room, which was me and my brother room, but he had already left. So it was just my whole training space, but the whole wall was a mirror. It was glass, so I could see myself. And I think that helped me take ownership of my body. And not even just the physical, it was just like my manner, like seeing everything, how I'm like, oh, but that's not a facade. You do that naturally. Like nobody told you to do that. Like that's who you are. And using those videos to enhance like my vocals and start practicing and all that kind of stuff, but it was still churning out the grace. It was churning out like the presentation, how you present yourself with class, with a certain air of, like you said, a respectability. Like, because that's what I stand on. Is my foundation is I respect myself, so I'm not going to allow anybody else to disrespect me.
Period.
And even if you do disrespect me, I know how to get at you without reducing myself to get you to come to a full understanding of who I am.
Yeah.
I love that.
I knew this was going to be like a little ceremony. I knew she was going to get in here and preach. I knew she was, child. I'm like, I need my stand in here like it's Sunday morning.
Listen, I'm here. I'm here for it all.
Yeah, we are happy to have you here. But also, I want Dev, the coolest, to actually I want to hear his thoughts and then go back to you on this specific question, or just to try to see if we had the similar experience. I kind of feel like we do, Dev and I, but for me, first, growing up, I actually didn't have a large introduction to the trans community. Or the gay community. I grew up, just in short, because it's not about me, but just in short, I grew up in a small community, and it wasn't a lot of, out gay people around. Like, I'm from the Bay Area, so
shout out the Bay.
Come on, Bay Area, yay area. But it just wasn't a lot of representation in my face. So I had to step out to like Oakland and San Francisco to kind of like see a bigger presence of like the LGBTQ plus community in general. And with that kind of being sheltered, I never like had introductions to anyone that was trans. I always like seen them from a distance that I knew of. Exactly, that I knew of. I've always seen, and in our brains, obviously we think, oh, you're only trans if we see you, just noticeably trans.
Stereotypes, all those things that we think exist of trans. The conditioning of it all.
Exactly. So I never seen anyone that I knew of to be trans, and I feel like right now I wish that I had, because I find myself in moments right now where I feel very naive, but I'm also willing to learn. But with me saying that, I'm happy that, like you mentioned earlier, that I have progressed to have an open mind and be willing to meet new people and to hear different stories and to do everything like that. But I'm curious, Dev, did you have like any experiences like growing up and like, meeting someone who was trans, or befriending someone that was trans? And
so I was born and raised in San Francisco. So so I was, from a young age, I experienced a lot. Like I went to an elementary school near the Castro. I think everyone in the LGBTQ community knows about the Castro in San Francisco. I mean, my elementary school was right there. And so we would, like, our Halloween marches and stuff, we would march up and down Castro, but also as adults, we're out on the Castro too, in the same time. So I saw it all. And just my personality has always been very just open and accepting and open to learning and hearing different experiences and just really understanding people's stories and where they come from. So and I went to performing arts. High school, everyone was super expressive. And so it, like, my understanding of the trans community specifically I knew about it from a very young age. The battle that I had growing up, though, is that I also grew up in a very religious household.
Yeah.
So while in a very ignorant household, they're learning now, thanks to me, and for my story and what I've come through and where I'm at now and being an advocate for everyone. But that's where the battle was for me. It wasn't so much that I didn't know. It was more so hearing what my family was saying versus what I knew was true, but trying to appease the family and stuff like that. So yeah, they're good now. We all good now.
We're getting there. We definitely getting there.
Yeah. Well, me and my family, I'm saying, community, we have a ways to go for sure.
Yeah. Of course, it's a process, and it's to piggyback off of that, like. I think what we deemed as trans was men in dresses or men in wigs, or you look at a big burly man and with a wig on, that's a trans person. Oh my God. Right. It was like creating this whole monster type vibe of what this whole group of people, that was none of that. There was none of that. It was based on what the hetero community wanted to portray, these unique, beautiful people, spiritual people that's been in the history books since the beginning of time.
Right.
We just didn't have that same definition of it. Like everything moved. Like that's why me and my mother, we have those type of conversations of like nothing is new under the sun. If you believe what you believe, whatever that higher power is, nothing new is under the sun. Now, at that time, you might not have had that particular definition or that particular understanding, but that does not say that those individuals were not here and are not still here. And so I'm a living testament of that new level of those people, because I just know my connection to earth. Yeah. I know my connection to the spiritual world, and I know that's my foundation. So because I know we've all been conditioned, and coming from a church background, of like, to have to sit up in a space and take such harsh type of conditioning on every Sunday, every Wednesday, right. And then come out of that sane with a sound mind of love and just trying to go about your enlightenment, like that's a blessing in itself. And so I think to come back to that same space, like it was presented to me, but it wasn't presented to me in a positive space. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we have to, that's why I do hashtag Nina Knowledge, because it's like once you do your own research, once you get your own knowledge of whatever it is you're looking for, that's your power. Like, so nobody could tell you anything after that. They could tell you that, but you know where you stand with a certain thing if you yourself have done the research. And so that's why I try to push to the people in my community, the people outside of my community, to be like, yo, just because you know me as a trans person don't mean you good. Because
right.
Exactly.
That's like equating that to like, oh, I'm not racist. I have a black friend.
Right.
What do you mean? Like, you need to know, and then to equate it on, am I presentable for you to step out with me? Mm. So it's so many things in that. So yeah, I challenge everybody, because I know for me, my prettiness gets me in the door to have those conversations with individuals who might not have never been around a trans person, so they think. And so it is my duty, if I be in those spaces and places, to then not sit by when I see or hear certain things that are transphobic, homophobic, racist, whatever that is, but particularly for the trans experience, it's like, well, you thought it was one way, but I'm sitting right in front of you, telling you it's another way. And now you're flabbergasted and you're clutching pearls because now you have saw your conditioning, you have saw your phobia right in front of you. So the same person that you took on, now you know more of their experience. Now what are you gonna do with that?
Right.
Are you gonna hate? Are you gonna discriminate? Are you gonna, you have many options, but I hope it's in the positive way.
Yeah.
Right. Are you gonna advocate in the right way?
Exactly. Because it's one thing to just sit back and accept and say, like you said, oh, I do have a friend that's trans and da-da-da-da, but what are you going to do to make sure that their voices are heard? That's why I'm so happy we have you on this show, because we want to amplify your voice. Like, we want to make sure that as many people as possible hear you and hear your story and hear, a portion of the trans experience in our world, in our community. So I do want to highlight something that you said, though. You said that you do a hashtag called Nina Knowledge.
Yes.
So look out for that. A hashtag called Nina Knowledge behind certain gems that you drop.
I took it as, like I said, once I do my research on something and it sits with me and I know it for sure within myself, I combine my own existence, which is Nina, but then I think about the knowledge. Everybody can get knowledge, but this is my own interpretation of my knowledge. So why, of course, as a creative, I take out the K in knowledge and put the capital N with the other N, and it becomes Nina Knowledge. So that's my own thing. So whenever you see that, you can, I always said the meeting is no longer has a time limit.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Right. I was like, wait, I don't see that.
Wait a minute, boo. But that's my own interpretation of my own views, the way I see things, my own unique thing. And then it's a part of branding. So if you ever want to click on that, it'll show you all my stuff via social media that is attached to that hashtag. And it's a way of, just keeping track of certain things that you do and making yourself more unique already than
everybody look out for that. Nina Knowledge. Look out for that.
Yes, hashtag Nina Knowledge.
So moving forward, I would like to hear, I know Dev agrees, I would like to hear one of your personal or one or two of your personal happy moments throughout, navigating your life as trans. Was there a defining moment throughout you growing up and through life where you were like, okay, this is the moment where I feel full. I feel really, really happy with, just completely, this experience right now?
I think, because that's I'm in the process of getting to that space as I'm being authentic in that. Because I know Black people, we have lived the experience of in spite of. Mm-hmm. So in spite of racism, we shine. In spite of segregation, we shine. In spite of. So I think for me, I've always realized I was under that type of policing. But even in that, I found bouts of joy or places of joy. But now I'm working on trying to fully live in that space of joy. So it could go back and forth. So one of the real things that made me have joy was, speaking of Brandy, that I had the pleasure when I first moved out here in LA to be an extra in her video. And so for me, it was the begging and pleading video. And yes, it was so surreal to me because literally in my mother's house, in my room, there's poster of Aaliyah, Destiny's Child, DMX, and Brandy. Mm-hmm. They raggedy by this time because they just been on the wall for the longest. But it was just so surreal because I was unannounced to me in my subconscious, I was already working towards that goal. And so to come years down the line that it's cemented that I'm in a video, and even in that, you could be an extra, but that don't mean you're gonna get scenes. That don't mean you're gonna get seen.
Right.
Literally, when I watch the video and I can see myself, that's when I'm down, when I'm going through the ebb and flows, I could go to that video and be like, little girl, you in a video with your musical mentor. You coming from a space of not knowing how to even get on, or all this was organic. And so I even look at that as a trifle because I look at Whitney Houston the same way. And so Brandy had the experience of being around Whitney. Mm-hmm. So when I had the ability to be around her, I was around Whitney. Yeah. That's how my mind thinks. Because it's like the beauty of that coming from a space of not knowing how your dreams will manifest, but you know they will. And they're still a work in progress, but that was one component that really like made me, and then I showed up in my authenticity. It wasn't I had to, hide. It wasn't the fact that, of course I was nervous, but at the same time, what beautiful image does that display to somebody of a trans experience who might be in the arts to say, oh, well, she was a beauty and they didn't give her no, she was like, oh, you can see her. And it's like, for somebody who was trans when they was younger or, as a younger child, like if I would have saw that on the TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Would have made a world of a difference, I'm sure. And it's,
and that's one of my main things that really let me live in my happiness and my, along the way.
I'm gonna have to go back and see the video.
Okay, let me turn it.
My hair was bigger. My hair was bigger than this. It was real full, but I had a black, I didn't even give you my stats. I had it was a black and white polka dot dress.
Uh-huh.
And I had a little tie up, because I do my my things right here, my bows, because it was like the Suge Avery type scene.
Yeah, okay.
So it was so good. I never forget that.
Let me go back and see that.
Right. So sorry, I don't know if y'all can hear in my background, but my neighbors started blasting their music, so that's why I keep going on mute. And they were playing Aaliyah, which is funny enough. You brought up Aaliyah. So I'm gonna be back and forth on mute, but I do want to ask you now on the flip side of that, like what were some challenges that you had to get through, that you had to kind of withstand, and how did you ever overcome them, and how would you encourage someone else that, like you said, your story is unique for you,
right?
But how would you encourage, using that experience, someone else that may be experiencing the same thing?
I think for me, it was the constant policing. Like, it wasn't even the blatant policing. I could understand it. If people don't know what policing is, like when you're being guarded, when you're being watched, when everything, like micromanaged, everything, all those type of things that are nagging and negative. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a policing of my existence, because they knew, number one, I was different, and they knew what I was attracting. For me, I knew that it was from the beginning that I attracted everybody. Everybody I knew I was a light person, and so everybody was attracted to me, but I also knew how the opposite sex was attracted to me, being that older dudes, like the young boys, everybody. I was like, okay, I gotta guard myself. But then with me understanding that, my people would notice that too and be like, why you walking like that? Don't wear that. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what is it?
Right.
Is it something you want to say? But that part, I'm glad once again that even by that time, my safe space with my spirituality was already secure.
Yeah.
So every time that would come to me, it would be like, girl, that's not you, that's them. Deal with it. They paying the bills. Deal with it. Clean up your room.
Right. Get those bills taken care of.
Make straight A's. Don't get in trouble. Doing all these things to make sure that you wasn't a nuisance. But in that, you create another monster of always wanting to be a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. Because you knew that's where your safety was. You knew that's where, well, if I don't get in trouble, if I don't cause a nuisance, what I realized the other day, probably maybe about 2 months ago, that I recognized that I did all those things, but none of that stuff added up to them fully seeing me.
Yeah.
So yes, I was the top grade A student. Yes, I didn't get in trouble. Yes, I was respectable. But I was doing all that for them, not for me. So I had to flip it and come to understanding like, yeah, they got you thus far, but now are you gonna do it for you? Because that's all that matters. If you do it for you, then everything else will come together. Yeah. So that it was the policing, particularly by the Black men, because they just didn't. I mean, it was everybody, but particularly for me, women have a way of a nice nasty, and men don't know how to be. And men just be blunt. Yeah. And they might tell you some stuff that you like 10 or 11, and you be like, what?
Like, what are you talking about?
Why did you tell me? Like, what is really going on? So I used to get a lot of that when I was younger.
Okay.
I think really quick before you, JB, I think it's really beautiful that you found that space as early as you did, because I can relate to that, right? In a way, because I'm the oldest child, so there's a lot of pressure on me to lead by example.
Be the example.
Right, exactly. And I was a straight A student, always on honor roll, getting awards every graduation. But I found myself a little later in life, in my current life. I'm not old, but I found out later, maybe in my mid-20s, that I'm leading a life to please other people, and this is not happy. I'm not happy in this. Yeah. And that's when I finally decided to come out. That's when I finally decided to take my life as my own. That's when I finally decided to make these changes. And this is only what I came out, JB, 2017?
Oh, almost
like 4 years ago. So
3 years? Well, congratulations.
Right, thank you. But I think it's really commendable and admirable that you were able to find that out early on about yourself. Like, I can't.
Don't give me too much now, because I knew for me. Like, I think this is a great segue into the differentiations of us in the community as a whole, because no one questioned to a certain degree, no one questioned your total existence. Because of my androgyny, because of my femininity, because of this existence, I knew I had to buckle down and come to an understanding, because otherwise it was gone. I couldn't hide. I couldn't blend in. I couldn't do any of that. So what I knew for myself was to come to terms with it and know whatever that came my way that was in the negative space wasn't for me. Yeah. So it was a thing of protection. And I think sometimes we forget in the community, as far as my cisgender community members still representing, same gender loving. It's still a thing of that no one still question your existence as a male, or flip it to as a cis female or a cis male. Yeah. For me, they question everything.
Right. Yeah.
So I knew I had to hurry up and get to that place of like, wait a minute, baby. Get to a full understanding of who you are, because it's gonna come your way heavy, and it did.
Yeah. With that being said, though, I definitely, and I appreciate you sharing that so, eloquently. I do want to share with our listeners some statistics on, things that are affecting the Black, specifically Black. We could talk about the whole trans community, but on this show, we like to put an emphasis and be specific when we're talking about the Black trans community.
Of course.
And, so one of the statistics is that that a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people don't know, is that Black transgender people have an extremely high unemployment rate. So, a lot of Black transgenders are out here unemployed, and that can lead to possibly doing illegal activities as well and putting their lives at risk and so have you. Another one is that 41% of Black transgenders experience homelessness, which kind of go hand in hand with being unemployed. Another one is that Black transgender people live in extreme poverty. 34% reporting a household income of less than $10,000 a year, which is just unfathomable. And that goes to them not being hired and people not really looking at them as actually people. And we're still in that space. And we like, I mean, personally, this is just a little sidebar, but we like to play kumbaya and, oh, we've made so much progress. And, you know, we're at the, you know, we're here and we accept everybody and blah, blah, blah. But these numbers don't lie. Like, this shit is still going on. Like, you know, so I'm all for acknowledging that we have made progress and that we are still moving forward. But at the end of the day, like, these are numbers that need to be addressed. And these are the numbers that need to be put out there so people can understand that this is still affecting the Black community in general. Another one is Black transgender people were affected by HIV in devastating numbers. It says more than 1/5 of respondents were living with HIV, 20%. So literally that's another number that needs to be put out there as well. And knowing these statistics in our community, in the Black gay community, our Black LGBTQ community, and then the Black community in general, I feel makes it real. And hopefully it leads to a process of like breaking down stigmas, you know, that are involved with the trans community and the Black gay LGBT community in general. Yeah. So, I mean, would you like to just touch on, you know, a few of these statistics and what, you know, our allies in the community, or, you know, I also want to, I don't know if you're going to say this afterwards, but I also want to point out how Black trans people are being killed at an alarming rate. Absolutely. I have the specific statistics now, but I know at the start of this year, it started off crazy. First weeks, we were already in double digits. So yeah, and then we lost someone right now. Currently.
Yes, correct. Her name was Nina Pop, and I could give you a statistic on that, is that it is for 2020, it was, excuse me for y'all hear that, but 2020, it's 11 transgender people and gender non-conforming people that have been murdered in 2020. Oh my God. Recently, Nina Pop, was I believe one of the Black trans women that was murdered in her apartment. And I think they have another one, you know, I like to do my research. They have another one just found out on May 6th. Her name was Haley O'Regan out of San Antonio, Texas. And that was on May 6th. But to speak to that, it's, when you, see, y'all gonna make me go deep now. When you look, number one, particularly Black trans women were the foundation of the LGBT community. Yeah, movement. Say it. The movement, everything, because just like the Castro, just like the French quarters in New Orleans, just like the New York. What's the space in New York? Oh, Stonewall or the area. I can't think of it. I can't think of it. In where Stonewall is, that's where transient Black trans women who didn't have a place to stay would congregate because they knew that was a space for safety. Yeah. But it was also a space for struggle because you're homeless every day. You don't know where your next meal will be. You're facing discrimination at the homeless shelters. You're facing discriminations at the bars that you help create in a space. Like when you think about, and I think that's the thing in the year of 2020, that because the ancestors and the people who I represent, and for me, who I represent, but they're dead and gone, but this new age image is that we make it, to a certain degree, we make it look good to where people don't realize the strength and struggle that it takes to even just walk out my door. Yeah. With the notion of, just like that Black man in the heteronormative side, that you have a target on your back, but I have a target on my back as well by those same people outside of your color. But then I also have another target on my back by you kings who want me as well. Like, it's so many levels. But to go back to that space of unemployment and discrimination in housing, medical, when you look at the facet or the space of being a Black trans woman, when you look at the avenues, and I always like to flip it to the person who can think of safety nets for themselves, i.e. their family, i.e. their friends, i.e. their jobs, i.e. their insurance, i.e. their... None of that is presented to a Black trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
You, even if you have the will
Mm-hmm.
to want to do it, those obstacles are already set in place, let alone by people outside of your race, but also people in your race, because they don't want to deal with the fact of, oh, they're different, or oh, they don't look the type. So I'm not gonna hire her or him because that's gonna cause some blah, blah, blah at your company. No, actually it's not. They're probably gonna they're probably gonna over excel because they're so grateful for you to give them an opportunity to even have a job.
Yes.
They didn't even know that they could go somewhere to make a check 300 and under just so they could pay their rent or pay their room rate in order for them not to sleep outside.
Yeah.
Now bring it to the murders. It's baffling still in the year 2020 that each year it's like we've now gotten accustomed to hearing the list.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm livid and enraged of the simple fact of like people who have that certain privilege, because everybody have privilege, but the people and our allies and people in the community are really not stepping up to showcase that space or give them a iota of an opportunity to show up.
Yeah.
And that's why I challenge the people who are around me, or the people who don't, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I got a degree. I knew education was gonna get me far, but it wasn't, I'm unique and different in that because outside of my trans existence, I knew I was special and unique. Everybody knows that for themselves, but I just knew that. And that was the thing that helped me guard myself in certain situations. I knew education was, I was like, if anything, they're not going, they can't tell a smart bitch nothing. Exactly. Once I know what I know, once I got the checklist of high school diploma, college educated, street sense, book sense, and common sense.
Yeah.
You got nothing to tell me.
And that's one of the things that they said too. They can't take an education from you back in the day. If you know, educated, they said Negro, they can take everything away from you, but they can't take an education. I'm sorry, go back to your saying.
No, and that's the truth of the matter. And it's just like, that's the thing that I always want my Black people to understand. It's like, baby, we in the struggle with you. You don't think that they had Black trans people who was in those marches, who was fighting for racism, but that still was getting killed by the people that they love?
Exactly.
Like, I always talk about, everybody talks about the intersectionality of Black and queer and all like that. And it's like, yeah, but that intersection of Black and trans, we get ran over at that intersection.
Yeah.
And they run right by us and not say a damn thing. And it's like, we looking for y'all. Like the thing that had me so livid, and it's not due to, how do I preface this? It's not the fact that I didn't want people to show up for my Black men who were murdered unjustly. But even in that same week, Nina Pop died March the 3rd. That was that Sunday. Mm-hmm. That's the same around the time that we was getting news about, you know, the Reed boy and Ahmaud and all those different people. And it's like, but hey, look, you know, I'm in the corner like screaming and shouting like, no, look at my girl Nina, but like, she Black too. Like, yes. But we don't want to talk about that because statistically, the people who are most but at the hands of murdering or assaulting and reducing Black trans women are our Black kings who love us.
But then we also have the side that type of information has been limited, given out to the community. They have silence in a sense and muted, you know, that type of information that is given out. Like, you don't see that on the Shade Room. They didn't post Nina Pop on the Shade Room. You know what I'm saying? You don't see that on CNN. They didn't post her on CNN. So it's like Black people, and me and Dev had this conversation before, but I personally feel like we live in a time right now where we need instant gratification. So everybody is hopping on social media and going to the shade room and going to watch CNN and everything like that. And if we're not getting this type of information and being updated on Black trans that are being murdered and everything, that's another layer to the fact that why a lot of people aren't stepping up.
But I think it goes to I think it once again shows that we need to call to task, or we need to be better at actually community.
Yeah.
Because if I call the powers that be, I know people who, and see, that's why I know about my actions speak louder than my words. Mm-hmm. So I use my actions to deliver my words in spaces that I know that can reach the masses. And so even in my little, not even in my little platform, but even in my platform, I was able to reach certain people outside of my demographic to showcase about Nina Pop. And they did it because I had a no fucks given mentality of like, somebody gonna hear this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Somebody gonna hear this because it hit home for me because, of course, seeing somebody named Nina.
Yeah.
And I don't exclude myself in the possibility. Yes, I have degrees. Yes, I have money in the bank. Yes, I have a stable roof. Yes, I have a car. Yes, I have friends and family. Yes, I have all those things, but that does not exclude me from me walking out my house and possibly getting killed because somebody say, you know what, I saw her and she turned me down. And who she thinks she is turning me down and she already trans. So what I'm gonna do is follow her, I'm gonna assault her, and I know that ain't nobody gonna stick up for her, so she's just gonna be another hashtag.
That's powerful.
So the trauma, the daily of getting those blows, and that's why I try to tell my kings who I'm in contact with of constantly saying, we not y'all enemy.
Yeah.
When you walk out your door, you have an X on your back. We do too. I know that feeling also well.
I would go as far to say that y'all have two X's.
Oh, I know.
Y'all have one front and one in the back.
I know. I've seen it because of my work thankfully, that's another thing about, I work in the nonprofit sector catering toward the Black LGBT community. Out here, I work with UWC, which is Unique Women's Coalition. That's a Black trans organization. You can follow them on Instagram. It's ran by Shayla Demir. She's it's the longest running Black trans woman's-led organization in Los Angeles. It's been over for 22 years. Then you also had a component of, I work with Ahmad Institute, and it's Arming Minorities Against Addiction and Disease. And we cater towards the upliftment and empowerment and of the Black LGBT community. And so my daily works are with spreading that message, of spreading that community, of making sure that that information is disseminated to the people and the powers that be so that this can stop. Because I don't want, until, I keep it 100, until you get a list of Black queer men every year getting murdered, then nobody can tell me nothing on how it's a different type of viewpoint and a different type of power structure.
Yeah.
And it only can be dismissed because the female, we gonna have each other. Black trans women, we gonna have each other. We've been having each other. It's when a man checks another man that they did it.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's just like, and to equate that, it's also just like when a white person checks another white person on their racism and their privilege.
Right.
To make it a little bit more clear, to clarify for those that don't understand what you, well, I'm sure they need to understand, but it's the same thing.
It's like when because I literally had to pull myself to get the strength to go in these people DMs that are, got the blue check and the, that are about that, because I'm like, the trauma of being a victim, but still compartmentalizing that in order to get to the people that you need to get to in a short period of time. And it's like, what would it feel like if I had my ally, if my brother over here, if my sister over there, if all came together just like we all come together when it's for injustices in certain communities. Black, period. We come together. The LGBT community come together for our said people and our allies, but they don't do it for us. And that's the only thing that I want to take charge, that I charge my community as a whole, my Black community as a whole, like, we need to get to a better place of doing that.
And that's a great segue to, I think, what we were going to go to is like, what more personally, from what, in your opinion, what more do you think can be done in like the, you know, in the Black hetero community as well as in the Black gay community? Like, you know, what more, like right now, like if we got off of Zoom right now, what is something that Dev and I can do outside of what you just said, which is speaking up and checking those, you know what I'm saying, and being supportive and being true allies? What is something we could do more? Because I do remember, going real back, I do remember on I looked at your story, you posted Nina Pop. That's how I found out about Nina Pop, because I seen her on your story and I said, what, this happened? And then I went and did my research, and I did more research, and then I posted it on our Slick Talk page, and then we talked a little bit about it in the last episode. So, you know, what more could be done? Like, what can we do?
I think number one, of course, it's education. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's your intent. Like, do you really care? Mm-hmm. If it's not in your circle, if it's not in your good Judy, if it's not, do you really care? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing too. It is like understanding your powers, understanding the levels of your privilege in order to execute what is good for the greater community. Because they at us now, what you think when we gone, who they gonna be at next? Mm-hmm. Like, so we gotta get out of this space of, that's a whole other thing. What you can do is constantly educate yourself. Number two, you have to, once again, know your power of your privilege, speak out. When your good Judy is not around as of the trans experience, are you letting transphobia transpire? Are you letting things that you know that your good sister or brother would not want to be around if they was right there in your face? Is there certain things that you need to check internally about your biases towards trans people? That's a whole other thing in itself as well. So it's all of this work that a lot of people don't want to do the inside work before we get out to say, I'm gonna help this person, or I'm an ally. And it's like, are you really though? Do you really see what is hurting? Do you really see how you police your good sister or brother of the trans experience because they might not meet your standards of what you deem is passable or presentable in a heteronormative space? Because that's what we all battle with, of how I size up in this society that already looks down upon me. And so I know for the community that I represent, we say, fuck that. You don't size me up to nothing except who I am as a existing, my own individual. And I think that's the thing, once again, educating yourself, stepping up, recognizing your own internal biases if you have them. And that's why I say we live in the world, we're living in 2020 to where I have a laptop in front of me, I have this iPhone, and I have this Droid. So this is my safe space to do research if I wanted to.
Right. Yeah. You have to want to do it before you do it.
If I wanted to, Dan, if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing that I think that's the thing that we forget, is that even in the LGBT community, particularly with my Black gay men, I always had to know y'all stuff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't I always had to know y'all stuff. It wasn't like, oh, I ain't worried about that. I had, because that was always on the forefront. Mm-hmm. So just like I had to know your stuff, don't second guess if you want to do research on how many people have died of the trans experience in 2019 and 2020. Yeah. We've been fighting since the beginning. Yeah. And we didn't second guess when we had to show up for y'all. But most of the time, everybody's second guess showing up for us. And I'm the girl. So y'all get me hit. I'm the girl. I'm a girl who will check anybody when in regards to your biases. I'll give you grace in the space, but it's only gonna last for a certain time. So then I will check you in a professional, respectful way, but let you know, hey. You see how you're being complicit to what you don't want nobody else to do to you outside of your race.
Check them, sis. Check them.
I love it.
Check they motherfucking ass. I'm about to check them.
Yeah, like, so I think, and I know that's what leaves me, that's what makes me have this type of voice, because it was always there. And I know what I present naturally gives me that space to educate.
Yeah.
And for so long, I didn't want that. I didn't want that spotlight. I didn't want the men to come up to me. I didn't want the people to, oh my God, you're so cute, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, girl, get out of my face. Like, I don't even know. Because I would think, I had to get over the fact that I was a light person and people are attracted to me, and that's a part of my gift. Because a lot of people would die for that. So it's a thing of recognizing my privilege and using that privilege to educate at any given point when I'm able to do so. Because there's certain points to where I gotta check my safety. Like, I don't have a full bodyguard team or people. I can't walk around yet in that space.
Right, yet.
When I can feel safe. Because I always knew that too. I knew that how people come unto me, that I would have to have those safeguards around me. Because, I'm good. I'm glad that I know within myself that I can protect myself, but it's just, once to get to that space and everybody's coming to me,
then it's like, look.
I'm an empath, and so that overloads me to where I'm like, let me get out.
Right, you have to take a step back and give yourself like that space to be able to recharge. But I think I want to, because we're definitely about to hit time, but I want to end it on a note for our listeners to definitely take away something like that's more like you. Like, what are you into? Like, let's get into like more of the human side of everything.
Okay.
Like, what are you into?
I know.
Like, if you,
No, I said not to cut you off, but yeah, I'm happy that we got to this point. It's been a great conversation. Wait, sidebar though. What sign are you, Nina?
I'm a Virgo.
Yes.
Virgo. Come on, Virgo.
You got that Beyonce energy.
From Virgo.
Listen, all of that. And I think that was a good segue, because it let me know, like, I always would check myself, and I never had an issue with checking myself. And I always lead with the intent of positivity. And I always made sure that Beyonce was an example. Destiny Child was an example. Anita Baker was an example. Michael Jackson was an example. All those Virgo, all that energy.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, look how they carry themselves. You got that same thing. And it's not to compare or say I'm like them, but I am like them, because I knew that's what they would always be. I would be drawn to them. I would be attracted to them in a space like, oh my God, like, how do they navigate and maneuver like that? And Aaliyah, like, her mysteriousness left you in a space of intrigue of like.
Leah was a Virgo?
No, she wasn't a Virgo, but far as a creative space.
Okay.
No, I don't know. She wasn't a Virgo.
Well, you know what? I'm tripping. She is a Capricorn. Her birthday is January 16th. Oh, right. That's right.
But no, for me, I like music. Once again, that's my escape. Mm-hmm. Not even my escape. That's my foundation. If I didn't have music, which is why I'm thankful that I'm in the position that I'm in, is that I could do my music. I could still do my job for the community. And I can still do stuff like this to combine the two, as well as show up in my fullness to give an example to people who might look at this podcast and be like, yo, she inspired me to do my own thing, whatever that is for them, that person.
Have you ever participated in the ball?
Have I participated in the ball?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, I was like Billy Porter, I'm ballroom adjacent, but I'm a little closer to he was in, because I was like, in the South, we did pageants as well as balls. But I just knew it was certain politics. I took the good out of it and left the stuff I didn't want.
Right.
Because with everything is politics, and I just knew I didn't want to leave a space that was policing, then go into another space that's policing. Like, make sense. I want freedom. Give it to me. I'm a stop. So it's just like.
Wait, and then my last question. Are you there, Nina?
It's like,
there you go. I was like, what happened?
You have froze.
You froze for a minute.
Did it me? I froze?
Yeah.
So I was just saying, music is my foundation. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm getting ready for my EP. I've got singles out, Neverending Nina, that one, on all of digital music platforms. Like I know my presence in the industry, in the music industry, is something that has never been done before, and I'm glad I'm on that track to. You've had people before in a space, but it was more so in the androgynous space. It was more so, i.e. drag queens or drag entertainers, but you never had a Black trans woman singing about soul, singing about R&B, singing about pop, singing about all those things that everybody named mama sing about,
right? But
it's just in a package that's quote unquote different to some. And so my job is to push that narrative forward, so the people that come after me can have it even less harsher in developing themselves in that space.
Absolutely. And then, I have so many. I like kicking in with Nina. Listen, I could have this conversation all day. But I am curious though, like, before we go, this is the last question, and then I do want to shout out your single, The One. It's called That One.
Yes.
Everything, Apple Music, Spotify, everywhere.
For independent artists, give me my dollar.
Right.
Download it.
Collect them. But so is there any significant? Do you have any significant others? Are you dating? Like, how has this pandemic treated you? Or do you have a cuddle buddy, a quarantine bud?
Well, the cuddle buddy is my pillow and my memory foam mattress. I'm thankful that I have that and able to get that and sustain that in my life right now. Thank you, God. It's so complex in that, but it's just simple. What I get from that is that I know my worth. Mm-hmm. And so because of my lived experience, I don't have to go for anything that come my way. I'm doing the work within myself to wait for that. Like in my song, it says Prince Charming. Mm-hmm. Like, we all know living fairy tales, but what I want and what I need is someone to see me in my full authenticity. Mm-hmm. Like, so when I wrote those things, that was true. That was like, I'm gonna do the work.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's gonna take, but I'm on that path. Mm-hmm. Now, if a person sees me respectfully in a space to where we could do what we do, mm-hmm. and y'all know what I mean, like, I understand it. But I'm able to compartmentalize just that and not get sold a dream. So I'm able to differentiate. And then plus, by being a creative, you in the world of all those type of things. So you really always have your guard up in that aspect to mm-hmm. like, they got to come through alarm systems, moats, security guards, all that to get up in my headspace and my heart.
Get past the alligators and everything.
All of that.
Well, thank you so much.
Neverending Nina, you're everything. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I mean, I feel like we're gonna get some questions, and if you're open to it, we would love to have you back on.
Of course.
Yes, everybody, check up Neverending Nina on Instagram.
Yes, all things Neverending Nina. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, particularly, and everywhere on digital music download spaces. You can download my single, That One. I have some other songs as well with collaborations with different rappers and stuff like that. So I'm working on my EP right now to be released after COVID do her thing, and we could go into still creating and getting out there. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Thank you so much, Nina. This was a pleasure. I hope a lot of people, take a lot from this conversation. And
I know they will.
Yeah.
Please, if I leave anything, just let's build. Let's, like, if nobody else got us, let us get us.
Right.
Put all this ego to the side. Let's put everything to the side and let's build each other up.
Exactly.
We got.
Yes.
And that's a great way to end the conversation.
Right, yes. You better end on a good note. Yes. Thank you. And take care of yourself, child. Listen, this Rona ain't no joke, so take care of yourself. And listeners, we will see y'all next week. We get to the end of the season, so we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves. We love y'all.
Cheers.